Hi, my name is Rufus Theophilus, and today I'll be talking about nutrition in healthy and overweight stroke obese elders. When we talk about elders, according to the World Health Organization, an elder is someone who is aged 65 years and above. And from this definition, it becomes obvious that a lot of people are present in this age bracket. Consequently, what this implies is that the experience of aging will definitely vary because of the large sample size in this age bracket. Nutrition is essential in this age group, and this is because nutrition supports cellular function throughout the body system, and nutrition is important because it strengthens the immune system and also helps in warding off physical and mental illnesses. The elderly are actually at greater risk when compared with younger population, and this is because of their dwindling metabolic rate. According to previous studies, the capacity of respiring tissues to oxidize fat actually decline with age, and this contributes to an increased adiposity or weight gain. This eventually increases the risk of certain chronic diseases. Therefore, the importance of nutrition in the immune system and the quality of life amongst elders cannot be overemphasized. And then if you look at the graphical abstract, which I came up with here, you will see I have the dietary guidelines for Americans and the food data center being fused together, more like telling you that these resources are actually available for the elders to help them or to guide them in making decisions concerning their food consumption or their fatty food consumption. And then if you look at it also, I have another pyramid here, which goes further to say that other resources which would help the elders in answering some of the questions which the dietary guidelines and the food data center may not be able to provide answers to can also be found even in this pyramid. This is because when I went on doing my research, I found out that some of the specific questions that are being asked by elders may not be or are not actually being answered by the dietary guidelines and the food data center. And so to come up with a lipid profile, I was suggesting with my graphical abstract here that the elders can actually rely on some studies, more like the cohort studies, the randomized control studies, or also relying on expert opinion to help them to come up with a lipid profile. So in structuring all of these resources together in my graphical abstract, I'm trying to say that having these resources will help the elders to know the importance of physical activity. Once they begin to practice the physical activity in combination with the knowledge of the right fatty food to consume, now this will help them to maintain a healthy status. And then another thing they would benefit from using these resources is possessing nutritional knowledge, which will eventually also translate to a healthy elder. Now, another resources, another of what benefit lies in these resources is the fact that they become conscious or aware of the role of metabolism and bioactivity. So they know now that the way each of the fatty components are being metabolized might differ even in gender. And that is why we have the recommendation for male and female being different. And they also are able to begin to think of the fact that even when you talk about fat, some factors such as temperature may affect this fat. And so they become conscious of the need of having a grasp of what metabolism and bioavailability could actually do or be in fatty food consumption. And as well, they also have a knowledge of what gut microbiota is. You know, this is where they now become conscious of what they take in, because they now know that even their gut has a way of interacting with their central nervous system. And that is where the knowledge of polyunsaturated fatty acid being able to even help the cognitive function, that is where that knowledge comes in now. So more like what my graphical abstract is trying to say is that in using these resources, the elders become so equipped in terms of knowledge, in terms of practice, and then we can now come up with a lipid a profile, so to say. So, and that's why, based on these resources, I came up with these recommendations that the total fat intake should be between 20 to 35% of caloric intake. The monounsaturated fat should not be above 20%. The medium chain fat should span between 6 to 30%. So you will find out that for the lower limit, you may recommend that for maybe those who are already obese or who are overweight. So you see that it's not like telling them not to consume this fat at all, like we might have heard that fat is bad for you and all of that. So it might now be that they are required to take this fat in a very small amount. So, but then when you talk about people who are underweight, then you might want to recommend the upper limit 30%, as we have in this case. Then you have the linoleic acid, and then which is about 5 to 10%. And when we talk about the linoleic acid, that's the polyunsaturated fatty acid, which here represents the omega-6 now. And then we have the alpha linolenic acid, which is recommended that it should be taken between 0.6 to about 1.2%. Then you have the DHA, which should be about 300 milligrams. Then we have the saturated fatty acid, which is recommended that not more than 10% of the daily caloric intake should be coming from saturated fat. Then the trans fat is the one which is recommended that elders should avoid, and if they are to take it, it shouldn't be above 1%. So, and then I have the second batch of recommendation here, more like generally saying that elders should adopt Mediterranean diet, which has actually been shown to be a healthy option, and then it's definitely varies depending on ethnicity or the diversity that we have there, the cultural diversity. And then here I also said the elders should avoid trans fat, and then they should limit saturated fat. All of these actually are derivable from all of these resources. So you could see that with all of this, the elders now know what to eat. They now have a good idea of the need for physical activity, and then they are able to use the dietary guidelines for Americans and the Food Data Central. So at the end of the day, we have a healthy adult. So this is basically the summary of my graphical abstract. Thank you for listening.